Everybody, welcome. I'm just going to give it a few seconds for you guys to tune in. I want to make sure that everybody can hear and see. Today's session is super duper important because we're going to be going over a really important topic that I notice we don't really approach very much as women and in the Black and Brown community. And that key topic is basically surrounding exactly how do you see negotiations? Is this something that you shy away from? Is it something that you feel uncomfortable with? Because as time progresses and as your career grows, it's very imperative that you grow and become very comfortable with talking about salary, talking about money, and most importantly, being able to communicate your worth, being able to communicate your expectations. If a job calls you, you don't want to waste time and you don't want them to waste your time. So I want to get you comfortable in approaching this conversation. I promise you it won't hurt, but you will want to take notes. This is another area. A lot of people keep talking about pivoting into tech. And while I teach classes on how to pivot into tech, I also like to introduce clients to the idea of understanding that once you pivot into tech, you now have to start negotiating. It's never going to get easy. This is not a conversation that you'll be able to just ultimately avoid. So that's what we're going to approach today. And I'm super excited. I'm going to urge you to get something to write with because you're going to want to pay very close attention. Okay. Let me do a little quick switch here. So welcome. And like I said, I'm just going to give everyone the opportunity to, kind of make their way over. Welcome. Okay. Got it. So welcome. We're going to be talking about, are you leaving money on the table? And this is a session I like to call kudos over compensation because when you move into an organization and you start to realize that you're contributing more than what your title says or what they pay you for, the question is like, okay, you pivot into tech. Okay, you move up the ladder. But what happens as that role grows? Are you communicating that? And if so, are you effective in those communications? So that's what we're going to talk about. Because a lot of people hit glass ceilings simply because they do not approach this conversation at all, or it is seen or deemed as somewhat uncomfortable. So we want to take the discomfort part away from that. I'm adjusting a few things on my end. Okay. So let's jump into it. What are we covering? What are kudos? A lot of you get these where you currently work, the organizations you work for. A lot of you work for organizations where, you work hard, you are over delivering, and you're not getting paid for what you want. You don't really know how to communicate what your expectations are to your employer. What do you do then, right? A lot of people say, well, Daniela, I don't really know how to ensure or, communicate what my expectations are. And how do we take our performance, those kudos that we get from executives and senior leaders, how do we bank on those things? That's what we're going to talk about. So let's have the uncomfortable conversation. Statistics show white males are more likely to make the move up the ladder because they use praises, kudos. They use information that they get from recruiters. They cause recruiters to kind of go into a bidding war because they are more likely to segue into advancing their career opportunities at any point in time. So a lot of the times we think that, it's limited access. We don't typically have access to things like this. But because times have changed and we do have diversity and inclusion initiatives being pushed so heavily, you do need to ask yourself, am I in a position or am I even thinking on how people who I'm competing with for a job may interpret or how they may be communicating what they want. What I've noticed is that some clients will say they took the same job with a person and this person is making more than me and we came in at the same time. Well, they probably segued into advancing their salary and getting some perks where you just kind of took that offer. So let's jump into it. But I like to let people know that statistic because you need to know what your counterparts are doing. I want to sit on this for a minute. Your career is your responsibility. I get a lot of clients who say stuff to me like, well, I shouldn't have to ask. I've contributed so much throughout the course of my career. They know how well I've performed. And my suggestion to that is maybe you still need to, sit down and think about what have you communicated and what have you not communicated, right? So I just want to make that clear. Your career is your responsibility. It is not the responsibility of leadership to find ways to advance your career. Okay. Let's move into, are you getting kudos, praise? Let's get the facts clear. First things first, it's business. Don't personalize the compliments. They are not indicators of loyalty. I cannot tell you how many times I have to tell clients. People tell me, "Oh, my boss loves me." Oh, the CTO, I'm cool with them. Oh, I'm friends with the CEO, and they will still lay you off if they have to, or if they can, or if they can save 3%, they will lay you off. Okay, and so it's business. Don't personalize these compliments. I read an article that says Black women have a tendency to be resident counselors. You get emotionally tied into private affairs. People confide in you a lot. People come to you a lot for advice and looking for feedback on things, or maybe seeing you as the resident auntie. You do not want to create that because you should be at work concerned more so of why they pay you. So let's keep this professional. People giving you like telling you you're great or you're wonderful. I have met clients who tell me they get praise from the C-suite and they are still underpaid. Okay, so kudos, praise has nothing to do, somebody liking you has nothing to do with your salary. Those are two different things. Okay, so let's not make that's a personal thing. Let's distinguish that first. If you are getting praise or kudos, make sure you capitalize off of that. It's not your boss's place to be saying, well, what's next for Daniela? That is my place to say, hey, Rebecca, hey, John, hey, Tyrone, or whoever you roll up to. Hey, I want to talk to you. I've been performing well. I want to see what's next. I'll talk about the next level for my career, the next move I want to make that won't only help, just me, but advance our group. That's how you want to segue into talking about money, moving up the ladder, and finding ways to capitalize off of your success in any given organization. Stop waiting on validation, okay? You don't need somebody to give you praise. When you do something amazing and the moment you get recognized for it, pivot into those conversations. But you waiting for them to validate you and mention that you're good for management, that may or may not ever happen. So the validation game, you got to kind of let that go. So what do you want to do with it? This is an opportunity to use as a gateway or a pivot point to open the conversation. A lot of the times people wait until, their annual review. Well, during your annual review, they've already made a decision on what percent raise you're getting and what the direction of your career is. That's not the point or time to now come back on the defense talking about all the times you did something amazing. At that point, it's like, what have you done for me lately? So that's why as things take place in your organization, you get raised, you raise a lot of, interest in you, or people start noticing you. That's your moment to say, hey, now I need to open a conversation and I need to capitalize off of this moment and strike now while the iron is hot. Okay. What do you do with it? Don't give anyone in leadership tasks to do in order for you to reach your goal. One of the things about negotiations is that you want to make it as easy as possible for that person to give you what you ask for. And so when you are negotiating, be very clear on what you're asking. Not, I'm looking for advancement opportunities. Not, I just want to get a raise. I'm just trying to see. When you start speaking very vague, that means that there's work for them to do. So the easier response is to say no. Okay? So make sure that you are thinking things through. If you saw an opportunity or you notice that there are no leads in the group that you're in, or you want to know if they're going to open up a position to take you closer to X, Y, and Z, that is what you need to have clear before you open any communications. You need to have a clear precise plan of action. What are you asking for? Okay, that is what you need to go in with. Go in for the kill. A lot of people give people stuff to do. What do you want to do with it? Everyone is not hating on you. Sometimes when you get a bad moment or something goes left, you have to get to a point as a leader that's climbing that ladder where you're open to constructive criticism. Uh, Most people, typically top paid executives, uh, they are very self aware. They know how their performance is perceived. But typically, top paid executives and leaders appear to always have answers because they are always seeking them. So always ask, like, hey, I'm doing really good. What is it going to take for me to get a raise of, you know, 10% or $15,000 more? Because here's where I'm contributing. This is what I'm asking for. Be very clear on what you want. And if they say no, no, it doesn't mean no, the door's closed. Okay, tell me where I'm off. If you say no, can you explain to me, what you would look for me? Because I'm already, I'm sorry. I'm already performing here, here, and here. This is where I'm at. So you tell me, allow them to say, well, you got to do this. So that way you can know if it's near impossible for you to get what you want out that organization and you need to move on. Or you see, okay, they gave me steps to fulfill to get what I want, right? When you're negotiating a salary, I wouldn't necessarily start asking for constructive criticism, but I would recommend that you ask for feedback. If somebody points out something that you've done that wasn't right, what can you provide? Ask your boss, engage them. Can you provide an example of what you were looking for since I did not do what you asked me to do? Can you outline that? And then when you have a chance, hey, I want to say thank you, send an email out to them. That way you have a paper trail. If somebody's keeping a document on you saying that you're messing up. Something that I did to gain notability with the CEO of a company I had worked with is I would always ask them when you're not giving us the projections, what do you think I could have done better as it pertains to capital projects? And before you answer, let me just give you an overview of how I'm performing now. Here's what's being done. Here's where I found cost savings. I had everything laid out. And I said, this conversation matters to me because the trajectory of my career matters. My goal was to be a director at that point. And so I need to understand, in order for you to take me as a serious candidate for a director, in order for me to get your buy-in and support, I need to know what I could have done better that would have pivoted me in that direction or made me a person that leadership sees as someone who they will want in leadership. Tell me what that is. Don't let people just tell you, well, you could have done this and you didn't do that. Okay, tell me what I could have done. If you notice your boss cannot pinpoint something, here's what I suggest. When somebody would just point out things that I couldn't do, I would say this. How about we have a meeting once you can outline exactly for me what you're looking to do? But because it's confusing for me when you're only able to tell me what I'm doing wrong, but I have no path for a direction. So do you mind if I throw a few ideas out at you what I could do to make this, to bring up the savings for our capital projects? Do you have some direction you can point me to? Always make it to where you put the burden on the person that's telling you failed at something. Instead of going into detail on what you did, ask them for a plan. What are you looking for me to do better? Is it because I need to know if this is actually possible from my position. I need to set the expectation and the tone. Because if you're expecting me to do something that's outside my title or not within my reach, I feel like I should communicate that back to you so that there are no disconnects. These types of conversations can avoid people getting laid off. This can also avoid your boss playing a game with you, making it seem like you're not doing good enough. Put the burden on the person to tell you what exactly you're looking for. When I negotiated with my CEO at the time, my question was simply, what am I not doing right now? And so he was like, Daniela, we're happy. You're doing great. Okay. And so a reason why this conversation matters to me is because I have my eye on that role. And I want to make sure that when I apply for it, that I check all the boxes, right? I've always been clear with leadership. I've always communicated the direction I wanted to go. And then I always made sure I gave an exact plan of what I was seeking and looking for. And most importantly, I always communicated back to them my performance, the kudos that I received, and all of those things, because then that makes it harder for them to tell you no. Reluctance to claim your achievements. A lot of the times women have a problem with this. Um, and this is what I call the great dilemma. You recognize your ability to deliver high quality results and outperform your counterparts. I get clients who come into my Patreon group, clients who come into my one-on-one services, and they tell me I have to do this and I have to do that, and I know I'm doing my job and I'm always performing well. But when you're communicating to leadership, are you complaining when you express that? You know, I have to do everything, because if you go melt down on someone, they're not going to listen. Or are you not comfortable using the word I? And I'm not saying you're not doing it, but make sure you're not using the word I on the defense, right? When something goes well, I think that is a great, hey, I think I'm really proud of the way I led this project. The team was so supportive in helping me get towards the initiatives that I developed. So I think I'm a great component for leadership for this role. Do you see how that was basically me taking claim? It wasn't me. I do everything. It wasn't me on the defense. Okay, so make sure that when you're communicating in negotiations, you're taking credit for exactly what took place. Hey, I had a great turnaround. The project was great because here's what I implemented. Not, oh, the project was great because I'm the only one that was working. That's on the defense, and you're also blaming people and throwing them under the bus. Hey, I'm glad to see the project go well. I enjoyed working with my team. I just wanted to let you know exactly where I came in and what exactly I laid out for the team so that you can understand the full spectrum of how that played out, because I think it's great that we document this as a company so we can keep this process flowing. So make sure you're using the word I, okay? Sometimes when people feel uncomfortable taking credit, they spread the credit around to people who really didn't do anything because they don't want to sound like they're gloating. But then you won't be able to leverage on that. Also, if you read the book 48 Powers of Law, it will tell you that if you do not take claim for the work you do, somebody else will. Okay? Book of the day, I just talked about this, 48 Powers of Law. If you don't really understand the game of politics and how to approach negotiations, never outshine the master. All those things are in that book. I highly recommend that book. It's by Robert Greene. You could probably get it on Amazon. I think so. Basically, when you're communicating with your leadership, ask yourself, do you take proper credit, right? And are you communicating where you've outshined others, where you really came through for the company and the organization? So good luck on your journey. If you have questions, please drop the comments and questions below. I'd love to interact with you guys. Also, if you are interested in joining the Patreon group where I give counseling and career coaching for people trying to negotiate, for people moving into leadership, both senior and executive, make sure you join with the link in my description. Thanks, guys. Have a great night. Any questions? Sorry. Let me see. I don't think I have questions. Any questions, guys? For those of you who came in late, I'll back it up just a little bit. Somebody came in late. Let me also pull the links so that everybody can have access to everything. Thanks. Yeah, so if you guys want to join the Patreon, this in the Patreon I give outlines, spreadsheets. I coach you on how to work your way through these types of conversations. And the reason why I wanted to talk about, I know some of you are saying, well, I want to get a new job. That is not going to fix the fact that you're underpaid. If you go into a new job and you don't know how to communicate what you're doing, you don't know how to negotiate every year, you don't know how to communicate to leadership, in 2 years, you're going to be back in that place where you're irritated and burnt out. Pivoting into tech won't solve your problem. The question is, what kind of communication skills do you have surrounding how you ask for money? How do you open up these conversations for money, for pay? Shaquana said, thanks. Thanks for attending. So like I said to everyone else who came in a bit late, always go back here. When somebody points out what you did wrong, instead of going on the defense, ask them what you could have done better. What I noticed as a woman, this made people more hesitant in trying to pick me apart. Because if you're going to pick me apart, then you need to tell me what you were looking for. If you don't know what you were looking for, how do you know that that was the wrong approach? If you don't even really have a clear destiny or a clear outline of what you're expecting, show me what you're expecting out of this, because we need to manage expectations, right? Every time I would do that, I noticed that if the person did not have an example or they didn't know, they will just say, well, you're right, I don't really know, so let's just keep working through it. Then I will follow up with an email. Hey, I'm glad we were able to communicate that. I would hit the high points that we discussed. You brought up that you didn't like X, Y, and Z, but then I think we both realized you don't really have a clear picture of what you need. I'm going to be spending some time really looking at this and ways we can change this as a group, right? Because if your leader cannot tell you what's wrong, how can they pin stuff on you? So make sure you're aware of your communication and the language that leadership uses with you, right? So I always like to tell people, it's not what you say sometimes, it's how you say it. Let's make sure we're taking claim for the work we've actually done. And like I said, I am a huge advocate for investing in yourself, like seriously hardcore investing in yourself and really understanding what you bring to the table. So if you guys have any questions, I will leave this open for a few minutes to answer those questions. I always like when you guys get something out of this, because that's the whole purpose. The whole reason I do this, right? So I'm looking forward to answering questions. Even if I hang or like in the session, you can still come in and add your questions and comments and concerns, and I'll go in typically before I go to bed and respond to those. This was a really good session. If you guys have any questions or comments, please let me know. Like I said, if you want to join the Patreon where you can get real coaching in real time with me to walk you through things on how to negotiate your salary with the recruiter and how to negotiate your raise with your current employer, or if you're trying to pivot into tech, please make sure to join the Patreon. I'm going to go live again tomorrow, and we're going to hit another topic. So every day this week, I'm going to be touching on something important. So make sure you turn your notifications on. Anybody have any questions? Okay, I assume those questions, everybody has their questions answered. Remember, again, if you want to go back and watch the replay, please do so. I'd be glad to help and work through some of your concerns or where you guys have questions. For now, God bless, and you guys have a great evening.